Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. All right, so got the win yesterday, LA. Very happy about that win, man. We needed it. It was right on time. Obviously, with us going through what we were going through with that first game and how poorly we showed, it was so incredibly essential that we not only got the victory but improved upon some things that we had been doing poorly, kind of give ourselves the confidence that we needed going forward in the series back now headed to Minnesota. So I thought we did so on the defensive end for sure. I think the defensive end, we really looked like we did when we were on that stretch before those injuries hit, especially in that fourth quarter. I thought we were really rabid in defending Anthony Edwards. It was described in his statements that he was confused, although I didn't hear those statements myself. I heard them referred to. And him saying that he was confused tells me that whatever they were scheming, whatever they had in mind, it worked. And that's really what it's about, is making sure that those schemes that we put forth in trying to defend this guy, keep him guessing. And so that's what I'm saying to you all. I think we did a good job on him, and he had 0 assists last night. 0 assists after having, I think, 8 or 9 in the first game. We flipped everything on its axis. They went from having big assists in the first game, and we only had about 15 of them. Until yet last night, it was something like that on our end, flipped the other way. So we want to continue to have ball movement be predicated in our offense, whether we're hitting shots or not. And I thought we did a better job there on the offensive end versus defensively, kind of keeping them from being able to regain the same success they had in game one. So when you consider what our team wants to be, if we can just get our offense and our defense both clicking at the same time against this team, we expect to win that particular game. But we have not found much offensive success against Minnesota all year long, and I still hold some concerns that we are going to have a lot of trouble with their defensive intensity, length, and just overall matchups against us defensively. Many mentioned how we were hunting Rudy Gobert with isolation plays against with Luka Doncic spearheading that. I think that kind of contributed to some of the stagnation. Is trying to get ourselves in these isolated situations where Luka has the ball in his hands to start and finishes the play with him shooting. I called that out last night. It seems like that was part of the scheme to try to do hunting and things like that. I think we should probably pull back on some of that and opt to do a bit more ball movement type stuff that will allow everyone to feel like they're a part of the offense. I think this is an important aspect of what we do. I think our players are naturally offensive players. We have too many guys on the offensive end not getting touches, too many guys on the offensive end standing around, too many guys watching the ball clink, thinking that they could probably have done something better if the ball would have came their way. It just doesn't create a good environment overall when you have too many possessions like that. And so that's why I've been calling out. I think some of that is scheme. Some of that's just understanding Luka Doncic and what his comforts are. Some of that is stuff that we need to get away from in order to be our best offensive selves. And so keeping this team guessing, I think, is great, though. Keeping this team guessing is the way to go. We can throw in some of that to do so, but I think getting away from it makes a lot of sense for our overall continuity. Rebounding the ball, I was very pleased with how we rebounded yesterday. I don't know if we could duplicate that on most nights. I think we were rabid in our intentions to crash the glass. I don't know that we have the personnel to necessarily beat them on the boards every night. I don't know how much of that contributed to them not being ready or being satisfied with the overall split before the game even tipped off. They were probably happy that they got one in this building. And I don't know if they came with the same requisite amount of energy to rebound like their roster would expect it to get out of themselves. What I'm interested in regards to the opponent is how much of what we saw from game 1 to game 2 from players like Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker can be expected going forward in the series. Because from a Laker perspective, I feel extremely positive about them at this point now having data stating that they are inconsistent in this series. Game one, they played great, being big contributors to the scoring. Game 2, all three of them dudes cold. didn't get nothing out of them. That type of inconsistency would frustrate me if I were on the Minnesota side of things. It makes me very happy on the Lakers side of things. I just think they're a much better team when they can get something consistent out of those guys. And if we can find a way to continue to assure that they struggle in this series, I think it'll go a long way in capturing wins for us. I'm not saying that shutting them down is the end-all, be-all, but I am saying that based on 2 games worth of data, if those guys ain't scoring, they can't score as a team. When those guys are scoring, it really does work in their favor because we can't seem to score against them. So whatever can be as disruptive as possible to their offense, I think is going to help us significantly in this series. Because I just have no confidence right now that we can score a healthy amount of points to beat this team. So we must be disruptive defensively. We must try to win this series on the defensive end. I think what we saw in that game too is probably what we're going to see a lot of the time in this series, which is an ugly basketball game where shots are not necessarily falling. Teams are going to be trying to make their money on the defensive end on both sides. You know, the Lakers offense, of course, struggling. And yesterday, the Minnesota Timberwolves scored the lowest amount they had all season long. We just got to continue to make it ugly. You know, sometimes that's just what the on paper you're going to see is an ugly basketball game. Teams that don't have great shot makers do have rabid defenders. It's just an ugly shot making type of series. I think when I look back in the past, when I was a young Laker fan, a kid, some of those Bulls matchups, you know, the post Michael Jordan era, sort of into like the era where they had Luol Deng and Derrick Rose, that era, every time we saw the Bulls, it was ugly like this for like 3 years straight. When you see the Bulls, you knew it was going to be an ugly game. Nobody was going to score very much. It's going to be a lot of fouls called. It's going to be a physical game, and you're going to have to win it that way. I'm starting to think, with the sample size of what we have with the Minnesota Timberwolves, that's kind of what this is right now. You're probably going to have to win every game ugly as hell. You're probably going to have to fight tooth and nail physically to beat this team, and I just worry about that either way. Obviously, if you lose the series, you lost the series. But even if we win the series, I think that wear down factor could really hurt us going into the next one. And if I were on their side, I feel the same way. It's just a little too physical to want to have to start your series, especially when you've had injury issues like we've had, and your guys are older like ours are. So that concerns me, just having this matchup. I know a lot of people didn't want to play some of the other teams for good reason, but this is the team that I think you probably have to be as physical with the most. This is the team where you gotta really push every possession damn near. And for a guy like LeBron James, this is like one of the worst matchups because you really are genuinely going up against somebody who might be stronger than you, and Julius Randle. You know what I mean? And having to deal with his power and speed. 2 games in, LeBron has been beat up. It just is what it is. Julius is younger, and he's more likely to be able to absorb a lot of that than LeBron. Julius has been injury prone, so I would say he's not an Iron Man. We all know that. But when he's healthy, he could make an argument for being one of the most powerful players physically to deal with in the NBA today. And so I don't like this matchup for LeBron, as I've said a million times. I do not like him having to bang up against Julius Randle in a damn playoff series at all. I never want to see him banging up against Julius Randle in a regular game, in a regular season. Just one game of that is too much, in my opinion. It has been for a while. But now it's like at 40, when he's already showing signs of having to deal with injuries and stuff like that weren't necessarily prevalent throughout the course of his career, I think this is the exact matchup that you want someone else to spend a good portion of the time banging up against Julius Randle. And that's why, you know, of course you guys already know how I feel about the Jemison situation. That's exactly why I would not have allowed this roster to go into the playoffs without Jemison. There's no way. There's no way. I don't care if Jemison's playing well or not. Just bang against Julius for 10 minutes. That's all I need you to do. 15 minutes. Just take some of the burden of that punishment. I don't give a damn if you're productive or not. Just take some of that punishment and do what I want him to do. And dish some of it out to wear Julius down. I want other people having to guard Julius. I know we put Jordan Goodwin on Julius Randle. Obviously, you don't want to hunt that matchup out. They're going to hunt that matchup a lot of times. But anybody who can take that punishment while being competent on the basketball floor is important. I definitely don't want Luka to do it. I'd rather LeBron be on him than Luka. But I just really think that for our journey and our hopes for these playoffs, you need somebody to take that punishment every night and let LeBron only take like half of what it is he would otherwise be expected to take. And I just don't know through our roster we can effectively afford to do that without being significantly bad when it's happening. So that's the problem. It's just, this is a terrible situation for us, in my opinion, so long as LeBron has to keep banging up against this dude every damn night. And that is why I think, and I said this last night, and I kind of said it in passing, but I'm going to reiterate this. I'm not looking for the split in Minnesota. I want both of these games. Because I think the longer this series goes, the more likely this becomes a real problem. If you can shorten this series to 5, even though that's not looking realistic, if you can shorten this series to 5, obviously you're not taking as much punishment. That's clearly what it is I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm saying I don't want. So the fewer games we play in this series, the lesser punishment we take in this series. And I think we need to get this thing over with. I think we need to get it over with. That's all I got to say. And of course, I think Minnesota should be thinking the same thing. The shorter the series, the better. I don't want this thing going 6-7 games if I'm either team. So I think game 3 and game 4 should be treated with the urgency of game 7. Just speaking to the understanding of what this journey is really about and how much energy you think you're going to need versus how much you got to dish out in this first series. Too many years I've seen teams have bad physical series that ended up leaving them exhausted in the following series. I've seen it more than once. Teams be better than the team that they're about to see, but they don't have any gas for them. It's just not something that I want to toy around with as a Laker fan, knowing that we probably have to see either the Golden State Warriors, who are also going to be very physical, or the Houston Rockets, who have more of the same to wear you down, especially with their centers. You know, it's just, you definitely do not want to have to keep banging with Julius for 7 damn games. You don't want that. Banging with Naz Reid, banging with Gobert, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. These dudes can be very physical. And so that's really my point of view. Ant-Man, these guys are not exactly made of plush softness. You know, they're not. And so yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If we can get 2, that's my goal. 1 is not enough. Getting the split secures this being a 6-game series. If we can avoid that, we should have a very strong desire to do so. I think it could be the difference between making it through the next series after that or not. I think it. And so, yeah, that's something I definitely appreciate. Hitting all 20 of our free throws. You know, I put a lot of emphasis on the free throw line. You get the free ones, take care of it. I've pointed out in so many different instances where teams will miss a certain amount of free throws and lose by that amount or close to it. The Lakers were 100% from the free throw line, having gone 20 times last night. That is championship level focus. You can rest assured that you're not going to lose too many games when you go to the line 20 times, hit all of them. You're not going to lose. Getting 20 free points goes a very long way in making up for missed shots, missed defensive assignments, all of that. You got to take care of the free ones. You got to take care of the free ones, and just the same, you got to keep your composure so that you don't give up free ones for the other team that aren't even involved in play. Assistant coaches, players, everybody got to understand that the technical foul sometimes can actually be the difference in the score, literally. And so make your free throws and don't give any free ones away. That's what I want to say. I agree with some of the pundits who are saying the game was officiated a little strange last night. I didn't think too much about it when reacting to it, but as I consider it now, there were times where I said, this seems like one of those rare games where the officials are calling ticky-tack fouls but allowing hard clobbers. It didn't make no sense to me. You could punch a guy in the head and not get a foul call, but you blow in a guy's direction and they're whistling it. That's kind of what I saw last night, and I saw other people mention it as well. I thought it was a very bizarre basketball game from an officiating standpoint. Very bizarre. A lot of challenges. It was very bizarre. I would like to revert back to the conversation about Julius Randle and guys taking punishment, because I do think that Jackson Hayes is somebody that, in my perfect world, will take on some of that punishment for LeBron James. He's obviously our center. I don't look at Jackson as a very powerful man, but I'd rather wear Jackson down than wear LeBron down, obviously. Here's the problem. Jackson's minutes have been very bad in this series. He's only had about 7 minutes, and I can argue he should have had even less based on how he's playing. Yesterday, he came in, had a very obvious goaltend. Anybody who was watching that game saw that was a goaltend. You don't touch that ball. I do think that shot goes in either way, but you do not give them free points. Just like you don't from the free throw line, you definitely don't want to be packing stuff when the ball's coming down on this arc. And I thought that was not smart for Jackson Hayes to even attempt that particular block. It was not necessary. These are the playoffs. And if you want to be taken seriously in the NBA, you got to understand that players that aren't doing that. They're not making that mistake. And then furthermore, that screen that he took where he leaned his shoulder in, before they even got over half court, he's trying to set a screen, leaning in. I just really thought that was really, it spoke to the same type of thing. Like, if you're a serious player in this league and you're trying to have people actually take you seriously, that's not a mistake you're ever going to make. And so this is the problem with allowing Jackson Hayes to be your center. You know, this is the problem. He's not of a certain caliber of player. He's just not. Some guys are, some guys are not. And he's not. And this is what ultimately goes wrong when you let it to be him being your starting center. And then furthermore, your backup center is Alex Len. You're just not going to get very far. Realistically, you're just not. And that's why I really firmly believe that Trey Jemison and Christian Koloko should have been on this roster instead of guys like Markieff Morris, of whom we're not going to use, Maxi Kleber, of whom we're not going to use, although I understand the situation with his contract. But the Markieff Morris conversation is like, I like Markieff to stretch the floor some, but coach is never going to use him. We needed Koloko and Jemison specifically as a need for our roster. You know, there was no need for Markieff Morris, in theory. You know what I mean? We need, Jordan Goodwin, obviously, I'm glad we picked him up. But to not secure that other center, that was us hurting ourselves. And I just think that the Los Angeles Lakers were not in a position to do that based on their center position woes. You were not in a position to not be deep with the centers that you have. You left yourself inadequate in that area, and you're going to have some serious matchups in that regard. So I thought that the organizational decision to do this it could potentially cost us. I think our ceiling is significantly lower because we're rendered small ball at all times, and that's just not what we've been, not necessarily. So yeah, I don't like our chances to win the championship this year at all, because eventually you're going to run into a matchup where you ain't going to be able to get away with that. That's what it really comes down to for me. I do not have championship hope right now. I have a hope for us getting out of the first round, maybe even hopes of getting out of the second round. But once you start running into those teams that you can't get, you can't afford to do that against, Houston might be one of them. You can't afford to do that against certain teams, man, period. You needed Jackson Hayes to be somebody that was competent on the basketball floor, that you can count on to play at least 25 minutes. You needed the person behind him to be strong enough to take on punishment from some of these bruising bigs. You left yourself without that stuff. And it didn't have to go that way based on what our options were as an organization. So I'm disappointed in our front office for not getting that right. And it has a lot to do with my overall confidence in this unit. It does. And it's a shame, because I think that if we had those pieces, we probably would be in a great position to get to the finals. But I think you run into the wrong team, and it could be bad for you. You are more incumbent upon your small ball working, which means that you're going to need LeBron James and Luka Don to be healthy 100% of the time. And that's just, you're putting that at risk when you don't allow yourself to have some big guys take on some of the punishment of those matchups they're gonna have to take on. It's just one thing leads to another in that situation, in my opinion. So yeah, man, I would love to say that the Los Angeles Lakers are in a great spot. I really would. But I just think that the most important thing the Lakers can do is carry that defensive intensity that they had from this previous game we just played and make sure that it's the same intensity that they have in Game 3. That urgency needs to be the same as it was in Game 2. It must. For the rest of the damn series. I'm not comfortable in no state of this series because as long as we have to take punishment to win it, we're 1 or 2 injuries away from letting them back in the series if we happen to get a lead. You know, literally. Or 1 or 2 injuries away from not being able to get back in this series if we happen to go down. And that's why the urgency needs to be Game 7 every night in this series. What else is there to say? I thought we did a good job cutting down on their fast breaks and making sure we got in the fast break, making sure that was inverted from the Game 1. Our transition defense was much better in this game than it was in the first one. So I thought we really made the adjustments necessary to patch up holes that we left open. I thought we got out to shooters much better. So you could clearly see we were trying to fix problems that we allowed in the first game. With that being said, we still have some things to patch up, and they're going to counteract some of those adjustments to try to swing the favor back their way, especially with them having the home court in the next game. I expect that we're going to have to be ready for the adjustments to what it is that we've done here. I think they're going to try to get as many opportunities to scheme Anthony Edwards into being a playmaker because it worked in the first game. They got no assists out of him in the second game. I just don't think that they can win if they don't get him at least 4 or 5 assists every game in this series. So what we got to try to do is continue to keep him as inept as possible, facilitating the basketball to other players, try to cut down on how many of those opportunities are successful for him by staying home on his shooters. I don't know that you scheme him free lanes because obviously it is Ant-Man. And what that means is his athleticism, as we've clearly seen as he dunked on Jackson Hayes, is superior to most. So you don't want to make anything simple for him. Like I said, keeping him guessing, making him figure out wonder and all of these different types of things is the best way. Try to defend him because his gifts are sound athletically and he's smart. So, and he's still developing as a guard. You don't want him growing up in the series. You got to continue to make things as complicated against him as humanly possible. So their team assist number was poor in Game 2. I will suspect that they're going to try to get back up into the high 20s because that showed them how they could score the ball. And it's going to be required for them to score the ball in order to defeat us, in my opinion. So yeah, these are things that just come to mind. Our shooting was much better yesterday from the field. Our three-point shooting was awful. Shots either going to fall or they're not. I don't think we overshot, which is really positive. When you're shooting as poorly as we did, you want to get a healthy dose of getting to the line, hitting all of our free throws, offset that poor three-point shooting, especially with us having such a hard night scoring in general. It just reverts me back to thinking about those free throws. And so that's something we want to continue throughout the course of these playoffs. Hitting those, scheming shots that we can hit, trying to be as on balance as possible, shooting the ball, taking the good ones, you know what I mean? And that's, I do think, something that Dalton Knecht can really help us with. I really think that. I think that you could really improve your scoring tremendously if you just scheme him into your equation a little bit more. Especially when Luka's on the floor, even though that leaves you with a defensive deficiency. He can create so much space for Luka. Luka can create so much space for him. And I think it really can be something in theory that you may be able to kind of string together some nice runs, efficient runs on the offensive end. But you don't want to punch your defense because defense is likely going to win you the series. But to improve your offense, to at least ensure you score over 100 points, you're probably going to need Dalton Knecht to get involved in the series. I think we need to understand that our role players are best defended by this Minnesota team. And some of our role players, I'm expecting them to have these 15-point games, 16-point games against this unit because of how good those role players are on their side defensively. We can't count on them to score at all, and I think that's a big problem. We've been relying upon Luka Doncic to be really, really efficient, and he has been through 2 games, but we also know Luka can run cold. If Luka has a cold series or a cold game in Game 3, and we have the same production from everybody else that we've been getting, we definitely lose the game. We are too reliant upon Luka to continue to be basically a beautiful offensive player in an ugly series. He's been able to pull it off for 2 games. I know he's a great player beyond a lot of our imagination and understanding, but to rely upon him to continue to be pretty in an ugly series, I just got a feeling that some of that's going to start rolling back a little bit as they start turning their attention to trying to stop him or slow him down some. If he stops being able to score 32, 33, whatever it is, boy, we're going to need to find some scoring somewhere else. And the roles players are neutralized, it seems, effectively on the offensive end. Dodo is not getting off the way he usually does. Gabe Vincent hit a couple shots last night. Hopefully that continues. But I don't know where the scoring's coming from. From our bench, we're going to need it. And so this is why I continue to harp on the Dalton Knecht factor. I know that we could give up some things defensively if we let him take up too much time on the court. I understand that. But I also think that if we don't respect that he's going to provide us so much scoring for which we can't find anywhere else, we're probably going to find ourselves continuing to score like we've been scoring, 97, 96, 95 points, under 100 points, which is, I just don't think we can win 4 games with that being the case. I don't think so. So, harping on our offense may be the most important thing, but we got to understand that certain things are just schemed, not necessarily in the scheme, but in the matchups as it pertains to our offensive deficiencies. I just think that if we were playing against somebody else, you would get a little more out of Dodo. You would get a little more out of Jackson. You would get a little more out of Gabe. You would be able to involve Dalton Knecht without feeling like you're going to be on the worst side of it. It's the matchup. It's keeping us from scoring, and we need to find a way to bust through that without it just being Luka going crazy while everybody else is just like throwing rocks around. So that's kind of what it's been through 2 games. Luka's been great. He's been able to get everything he's wanted. He's been hitting shots. I love it. I think it can continue, but I don't like that being the only thing that we can actually get off offensively. I think that you're too reliant upon Minnesota to shoot 20% from the 3. Minnesota to have 16 assists in the game. You see what I'm saying? Luka's getting off, nobody else is. And the only game that we've won in this situation, with that being the case, has been with them shooting the worst they've shot all year. It's their season low for a reason. It's not something you can count on going forward. I think it makes so much sense to try to find ways to incorporate Dalton in so he can give us some of that pure scoring that comes with him being on the floor. And so that's what I'm hopeful for. That's exactly what I'm hopeful for. I think that Dalton Knecht has proven to me that he may not be able to defend it all, but when his confidence is where it needs to be, he's such an elite shooter. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's such an elite, dominant shooter. And so the way I see it is, if we continue to turn to him, we may be able to get out of him what it is he gives us, opt out of it when it starts to be an issue defensively, and then from there be okay. Good morning. Hey, friend. And so that's what I want us to do. The most important thing for us to do, though, is to continue to keep the intensity of the moment in the playoffs. And this series is something we know we can win if our focus is where it needs to be. I'd like to think that game one was an anomaly in the sense that we were caught off guard. We were over-rested. I think we were taking this team for granted. And as we approached it, I felt like the feel-out mentality was very prevalent in game one, as many have mentioned. We even talked about it going into game one. LeBron did, that this is a feel-out game, and we just want to kind of get an understanding of what we're dealing with. I would tell LeBron, like, I'm putting too much confidence in your ability to overcome things that you are not on paper favored to overcome. You cannot feel out, so to speak, every series, game one, especially when you have home court advantage. And when you don't have home court advantage, the series is going to shift back to your house anyway. You want to get the split. You could probably get away with a fill-out game like that. But when you have home court advantage against a team that is this damaging, you want the series to be quick, and you want it to be favoring you. And that feel-out crap doesn't take into account all that punishment that you're going to have to take. And knowing our limitations and where to place our urgency based on those limitations is essential in finding ways to win this basketball series. It's essential, man. I don't want to be the Debbie Downer talking too much about the Los Angeles Lakers not being able to take punishment and having, not the adequate players to really do so. But it is something that I think defines what we can do in this series. It defines it. So, short series. I can't harp in on that idea enough. The shorter, the better. The more rest you have, the more practices you need. I think that practices are very important, probably more important than rest, based on some of our deficiencies on the offensive end, how far away we are from being able to score against this team. I think we need to be practicing every other day in this series. I really do. I really do, and I expect that they will. So see the correlation between being able to execute your principles properly and your willingness to put in the effort in practice. Those two things go hand in hand. You can't get as good as you want to get nursing wounds and telling yourself that your rest is going to be what gives you fresh legs. You can have fresh legs and be running around exerting poor energy because of the lack of continuity. You might want to give up some of that freshness for the sake of the understanding and continuity. And so that's what's most important when you're getting your butt whipped. It's not fresh legs to run hard and still get your ass whooped. It's continuity, understanding, and preparation so that you don't have to exert too much energy. Because if you execute properly, you can make up your rest in game when you blow the team out. So that's how I look at it. Let's work a little harder in practice and stop licking our wounds so much away from practice, and we'll be good enough to get the rest in game rather than having these games and end up having us giving rest because we're blown out. That's one way to get your rest. Get blown out by 70 points. You see how much rest Memphis is getting in this series? They're getting all the rest in the world. And they're going to have even more rest after the series is over because they're about to get swept. So that's my thing. Like let's put a little more emphasis in the practice and see don't we work our conditioning up to a space where we don't need as much rest to begin with. That's the mentality I want to put forward. So yeah, all in all, though, I think you have to be encouraged by the fact that you were able to tie the series up. You have to be encouraged by the fact that the players who were playing so good in game one for the Minnesota did not continue that process. It shows that they can hurt themselves, and them hurting themselves can kind of offset some of the mistakes that you're prone to make in the series or some of your lack of energy. And so that was encouraging. If they continue to play well 2 games in a row, you still got the same amount of stuff out of the same people, I would be concerned that we might be overmatched just in total. But the fact that they're a team that is capable of taking some steps back without you really forcing that they are a mortal team that can make mistakes, so to speak, gives me more confidence that we don't have to play perfect ball to beat them. And that's ultimately what you want to see in the first round, especially when you have home court advantage. There's a team that's not so good that you can't beat them, or that they won't help you by beating themselves. they showed me last night that they are capable of beating themselves. So yeah, man, Terrence Shannon, I don't know if their coach is going to start realizing how much better their team is if they utilize that player. I know he's a young guy and all of this, but he has two-way ability and he has a big body that you have to try to keep up with. The 7 minutes that he had out there was hard for us to deal with, and the minutes that he had against the Lakers in the regular season contributed to one of their wins. We got to figure him out if they're going to opt toward him, but I don't know that Chris Finch is going to opt toward him because Chris Finch doesn't like playing rookies a lot of the time. I still find myself moderately apprehensive about him stepping onto the floor against us at any moment. I just think this could be potentially the beginning of a Naz Reid situation. Meaning, this could be a Laker killer extraordinaire if we continue to allow him to see success on the floor in his minutes against us. His confidence continues to grow, and he can score against us, and we have too many players around the league where that is the case. I think of more players, and it's not that I give too much thought to this, but I can think of more players that find ways of being confident against the Lakers and playing better than normal against the Lakers than I can think of guys around the league that tend to play poorly against the Lakers. I don't know if that's a nugget anybody can use in any way, but when I think about our team and the standouts in that regard, it's more people who find a way to ball out against us than guys who just continue to suck against us. I think the Lakers need to figure out those players, figure out who those people are, and start scheming against them in a way that specifically breaks some of that confidence. Because you find that those players continue to be consistent where others are not. Naz Reid did have a 1-for-10 game this year against us, but historically, if you look at Naz Reid's numbers, he plays so well against the Lakers. It's very, very consistent. Him playing well against us. I think about Jamal Murray. Same thing. I just think that once you start getting a whiff of that being the case, you got to try to demoralize those players. Specifically, them. You gotta treat them like superstars. So they can get out of that mindset that every time they come into your building or every time they see your colors, it's time for them to have a big game. You want them to understand that, yes, we saw you have a big game and now you're on our radar and we're going to come after you in a way that respects that production and that confidence and want to snuff out that confidence. If I were a superstar on a team or if I were a coach, that would be part of what I do. And I'm telling you, I'm starting to sense that with Terrence Shannon. I'm starting to sense that. He's starting to see that, when the Lakers come around, no matter if I get 7 minutes or 30 minutes, I can get whatever I want against them. I can run it down their throat, and that's what they have. No, you got to put an end to that. You got to snuff that confidence out. You got to show that player that you identify, just as he identified that he played well, that he needs to be stopped in a special way. And so I would. I don't care. I'd blitz him. I'd hard foul him. I'd flop off of him, whatever it takes to get him off the floor or to help him understand that you ain't about to just continue on that path. That's a psychological button that you got to press against those players. And given the fact that the Minnesota Timberwolves have that player in Naz Reid, we should already be focusing on that with Naz. That's why I thought scheming him open in game one was just like a lacking of understanding. And granted, we got a new coach. So he doesn't, in one of those games, Naz was 1 for 15, 1 for 10 or whatever. So in his mind, against him, Naz don't have that type of confidence. But for people who've been following the Lakers for 3 or 4 years in a row, fans who've been watching this team, and if you ask Darvin Ham, for example, he'll tell you, no, you can't leave Naz open, not against us. I don't care if he's been cold against everybody. Don't leave him against us. I don't care if he's been, he was the last game he was 1 for 10. Don't leave him open because he's had 8 or 9 straight games where he balled against the Lakers. You have to understand that doesn't get snuffed out by one bad game. Because when he thinks about who he wants to play against, when he's dreaming about how he's going to have his best game, chances are he's envisioning purple and gold on the other end of that. And the only thing he needs is another game against purple and gold to shake that off. You see what I'm saying? That's how that works. That's a psychological thing that comes from being a killer of a certain franchise. You got to snuff that out. You got to make sure that player doesn't feel that way at all. In fact, you really got to like go at them. And so that's my thing. I think it was just the wrong way of approaching Nas' confidence against the Lakers. And that's one thing that I just say, because Minnesota, the most prominent Laker killer I can think of is Naz Reid. Jamal Murray and Naz Reid are the two people that come to mind before anybody else. Like, them two people can't wait to see us, no matter what the hell's going on. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't really want to see Denver in the first round. And I understand that people were concerned about some of these other matchups, and Denver looked like a team where they didn't have their coach, so he probably get away with playing them and not really worrying about it. But my mindset against Denver is this: as long as that killer Jamal Murray's over there, specifically, or whatever team he finds himself on in the future, you kind of want to avoid that team. You want to avoid that team. You know what I'm saying? You want to avoid that team because he, in his mind, is shooting at the ocean when he's shooting at you. When he's playing offense against the Lakers, he's throwing BBs into a pool. Like, you don't, you know what I'm saying? It's not normal, his confidence against us. And so we got to try to avoid him in certain situations, or every situation, in my opinion. You guys follow me last year, you know how I was singing a different tune. Bring on Denver. I ain't afraid of Denver. They humbled me in a way to never let me think that way again. I can't represent myself on that basketball floor, as I've said many times in regards to this conversation. My confidence, if I've prepared myself and I'm good at something, I believe I can overcome stuff. But if I got to rely on other people and their mind and their practicing it to represent my confidence, I need to have a bit more reservation about what it is they're going to do, as to say, I could lose. You know what I mean? And even, or that maybe they can't overcome something that they've struggled with, you know, because you're not representing yourself. So I learned that lesson last year. We ain't doing that no more. If a team can defeat us, I'm not going to be sitting up here say bringing them on. Or if a guy has shown me that he thinks this is throwing rocks into a swimming pool, I'm not necessarily saying I just think we're going to beat him just because he doesn't have all his, just because he doesn't have everything he needs to adequately perform on a basketball floor. Because he might go out of body experience against us and still lead his team to victory. And that is what I ultimately believe at this point. And so that's what I want to share with you guys. I don't feel that way no more. I think that there's a very good chance you're still going to struggle with a Jamal Murray, even without a coach, even without a backup player, whatever. Like, he'll just be out there for 48 minutes just splashing all over you. And so that is why I still think avoiding Denver in this era for the Los Angeles Lakers isn't a bad idea. It isn't a bad idea at all. On top of that, Jokic is still over there. So I'm glad that if things go the way they're supposed to go, we don't see them until the third round. Third round, baby. You got to get past the Clippers. You got to get past OKC. And then you can see me. You know what I mean? That's how I want that Denver thing to go. I'm glad they're on the other side of the bracket. It's too much confidence over there with those players against us. I know better than to welcome that toward me as a fan. And so that's what I want to tell people as well, man. I ain't doing that this year. I feel good about this matchup in comparison, because although Naz Reid is over there, it ain't the same type of demon that we have to face going up against Jamal Murray, who then knocked us out of 2 different playoff series in a row. Multiple games, winners and stuff. Like, nah, I'm cool. I'm cool, bro. You can have that. So yeah, man, we got to focus on what's in front of us. I definitely don't want to look past nobody in this series. I think Minnesota has done more than enough to make me respect them. I think we've done more than enough for me to have reservations about our confidence. I think as a unit we should be confident in general, but as far as me being brash about us Lakers in 5 or something like that, no. I'm aiming for Lakers in 5. But to say that that's what I would expect, Nah, hell no. I think we should expect a very long series, but we should definitely be rooting for a short one for our needs as a unit. So that's really what it is, man. Austin Reaves, that's another topic of conversation. Like I said, I thought as the game progressed yesterday, we started to see him start to slowly but surely work his way out of that funk, adjust to the defensive pressure against him. I think one of his weaknesses is dealing with lengthy defenders like Nah, and some of the guys that Minnesota is throwing at him. I think that he can only get better at that particular thing in a series like this, where that is continuing to be thrown at him every night. I feel like as we go forward, he's going to find ways of handling that better. And as he handles it better, when we go up against normal defenders, he's going to cook them even more. As we often talk about in regards to the NBA, when you're playing at a higher difficulty, this, that, and the third, it does tend to lead you into your next matchup. And when it comes to Austin Reaves, if we win this series, I think the next guy is going to have a much more difficult time with Austin, because he's dealing with already difficulty superstar right now going up against the defenders that are on him. And he's struggling with it, but it's going to make him better. And so if he goes up against a regular guy or even another hard defender, he's going to handle it better, because we'll have gone through this series repeatedly going through this type of thing with these type of players. So I like this for Austin. It does exploit some of his weaknesses, but it also puts him in a position to be so much more reserved with the basketball, so much more intentional with his plays, because his margin of error is so much slimmer in this series than it probably is in other series. And so I like this for him. I really like this for him. But there's something else going against him that we mentioned yesterday, and that's how often he gets his touches and how likely he is to get in the rhythm. It's hard to make an argument that you want Luka Don to sacrifice the basketball when he's in his bag. We find ourselves up by double digits. Sometimes it just comes down to quality of possession. And if Luka's shooting the ball without passing it to anybody gives us the best quality possession, I could certainly make a case for why that should continue. If you're going to have such ridiculous basketball success, meaning plus minus, you're going to be, when you do this, up by 20, then chances are you probably want to do that more than anything else. They say the easiest path in a straight line is from point A to point B. When it comes to trying to win a basketball game or trying to build a big lead, it seems like the easiest path for us is to put the ball in Luka's hands and let him operate. However, for the sake of keeping leads, I struggle with that, because I'm finding that we end up giving back leads once Luka sits down. We're going to score up to 18, sit him down, and he comes back in the game, we're only up by 6. This is the type of thing that I've seen consistently at this point. Luka Don is going to have to sacrifice some of those possessions that are probably the best possessions for us to get leads, so that other people can be more involved in the basketball game. And then furthermore, be in better rhythm for when he sits down. It might equate to us being better if he does it that way. In the long run, because you don't find yourself having to sacrifice those leads when he sits down, if other guys are already in rhythm while he's on the floor. And so I'm torn with that, because I'm clearly seeing something very special happen. You talk about what affects winning, what affects positivity on the basketball floor. Luka Don shooting the basketball and getting in his bag really affects the basketball floor in a positive way for his team. Some superstars, for whatever reason or set of reasons, when they get in their bag, the lead is still close, or the lead is not, you're not getting so much separation when they're killing it. And I've seen this a lot in my life. But some superstars, they can string off 10 shots in a row and their team only up by 8. And Luka the Don string together 10 shots in a row and you're up by like 30. If he's hitting like he's normally hits. This is something that, when we talk about affecting winning, is truly defined in what I'm seeing with Luka the Don. In a way that is very special, if I'm being completely honest with you. And I think it's because he rebounds so well, and because his shots are usually 3-point shots or and ones that get to the line. It's just something that runs the score up in such a way that I guess it equates to the other team being off balance offensively, as well as giving up those scoring opportunities that he has. He's not considered a two-way player, but you're getting stops while he's on the floor. And that's shown in what it is I'm saying to you. Like, he's hitting shots, and all of a sudden you're going up by 30. If the other team is hitting shots while he's hitting shots, like a lot of superstars, then the score is a little closer. But I want people to pay attention to when Luka has the ball in his hands and he's doing his Luka thing. You look at that score, man. Usually up by 18. It goes from like 9 to 18 in like 5 possessions. And so that's something that I war with when I tell you guys that I think he needs to start sacrificing. Because if I'm doing all that offense, Austin don't have that efficiency when he's hot. It don't have that same effect necessarily. Bron, same thing. And we used to talk about this when AD was on the team. If AD was out and it was only LeBron on the floor with whatever else we had, LeBron didn't, quote unquote, affect winning. That's what we were talking about. We find ourselves, he scored 30 points, we still lose by 10. He go for 28, 9 and 9, and we still find ourselves losing the game. I firmly believe that Luka the Don has proven to me in a short sample size that he doesn't have that problem. If he's going off, you're going off, so long as everybody can stay sound around him. And that's why I believe he led his team to NBA Finals last year. That's why he's been to 5 All-NBA teams, first team in 6 years. I think that's why. Because not only is he getting off, but the other team is losing when he's doing it. And so your team just has to be competent enough around him to not give the lead back. And that's what I think when considering what we need to build around him, that's what comes to mind, what needs to happen in terms of our team building vision. Because I think that's where we're headed. We're going to have to build around this guy. I like Austin, LeBron, and Luka together to a degree, but I think the vision around Luka the Don long term obviously doesn't have LeBron a part of it. We're going to have some type of vision that is effective in making him a champion, man. And the vision that I see is making sure you have elements that allow for a lead to be kept, lob threats athletically, multiple positions, shooters, good corner guys like what we have right now in Dorian. These are the type of things that Luka's going to need going forward. As long as he has those things, he should be able to pick a team apart. And so that's what I wanted to say, man. I know this is a very long video, but we're in playoffs mode, so I'm definitely in that mindset that we need to go off and just let it let whatever comes out come out, because we are trying to win a championship, and I do think we got a lot going up against us in order for us to accomplish that right now. So yeah, man, that's pretty much where my head is. I really am happy it's playoff time. For no other reason, and it's much less homework for me to do, because every time there's a different team, I always have more highlights to watch. When it comes to just playing the same team, I ain't watching no highlights, so that's much more fun for my lazy mind. But Minnesota provides us a lot to consider going up against them, and my hope is that they just continue to be inconsistent with their role players, and Ant-Man continues to be sometimey with his playmaking willingness, and he tries to overshoot some, or that he just fades away. When I think of players that don't really play that well against the Lakers historically, Ant-Man actually comes to mind, and I've mentioned this more than once on this channel. He has played average or bad more than he's played great against us. And that is something I think he'll probably try to work out in this series if the series progresses. But game 2 was a little more of the same. I just didn't think he played that great of a game. I think it was, 10 of 22 from the field, 2 of 8 or something like that from the 3 with no assists, like 5 rebounds, something like that. That's not the Ant-Man that they need in order to win this series. And I just wonder if we're going to start seeing more data of him not necessarily being a Laker killer, unlike Naz Reid and maybe Terrence. So that's something that I've been looking at and I've been paying attention to his whole career. And he come up against the Lakers. He's had some really good games against the Lakers, maybe a couple, but more than not, he's either average or below. And so hopefully that continues in this series. But yeah, man. Throw people at Julius Randle. That'll help a lot for LeBron James overall. And that is the last thought I think I'll bring to the situation. BDL 44, I thank you all for watching.